Great. Hear me?
What?
Hear me, Bill?
No, what?
The cat. All white with cream spots.
Nice.
We like this room because of the dome ceiling.
Oh, that's
Notice that
The
you don't have
acoustics are good.
you don't have to talk very loud for everyone.
Guys were all like jotting down the names, and you were like on the edge of your seats even though you were standing. And when I was done, you guys all scurried off and you went out and you found all these places and stuff. I just thought that's great. They're into it. They're into it. They want to look at something interesting and people you've heard of. And even though it's just their grades, I just felt wonderful. That moment will always stand out to me. I mean, I loved every moment of the whole trip also, but that moment told me a lot about you guys. So.
We didn't go on the trip just to get a grade or anything, to an easy grade. We were all interested in it.
Well, you can tell that by the way you guys handled even all showing up last night for the movie night, and the way you guys handled the free days and everything else. So, this is the best group we've ever had.
Academic.
And we complimented the other groups, but this is by far
And they were excellent.
the most bonded group.
They were excellent. Something about this group, there's a synergy. Can't explain it.
I think we have a lot of intellectual people in this group.
There are.
Like, there's
Well,
a
thank
lot.
you. I appreciate that too. I have a new favorite moment. It was that one. Thank you.
Okay, here.
But anyway, I want to thank all of you. That was a great moment, and of course, I love doing the Freedom Trail, but
I love this. I love teaching you guys. Just make it so
Something
much
that
more
got
fun.
me was when I went into the American History Museum, walked over and saw a sword, even though I could care less about this man, that was from his family, from Return Jonathan Meigs. I was just floored. I'm like, I know that. I know
who's
who
it,
that man
Montgomery
is.
Meigs?
Return Jonathan Meigs. It was a sword of his. Return Jonathan Meigs.
That's his name. Return.
Yes, he was part Indian, Cherokee Indian. They used to name him funny, but it's on my ex-husband's family tree.
Oh wow.
So it was
And
part
it
of.
was like,
So you have a connection.
Yes.
yeah, it was like, oh my God, I know that man's name. So,
That was actually a really cool museum too, because I saw stuff in there I wasn't expecting to see. Like they had the original microphone.
Molly and I freaked out the entire time in there. I don't know. We were
fireside chats.
I wasn't looking. I'm sorry.
when it's weird though.
It was really neat.
Well, it's tough to realize. I mean, a lot of histories happen here in America. We just take it for granted. We don't think where it originated. So I'm glad that you were moved by that. Like,
Something special about yesterday too is that all of us learned something about Mary Surratt's life that neither of you knew about.
Rachel.
And do you guys have an appreciation for the fact that we've tried to make an effort to bring women into this course?
Hey, I appreciate that.
It's not just generals and wars and things like that. I mean, the witches and Mary Surratt and Mary Dyer.
They were all villains.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're right. And why don't we bring in some positive women here?
Margaret Sanger.
You want to? Yes, very good.
Dorothea Dick.
Yes. And I will remind all of you of the old saying that actually was originated in the 1970s, but I brought it up during my Women in Colonial America lecture that none of you saw.
I did.
Two of you
I
were there.
did. I was there.
Well-behaved women
Rarely.
seldom make history. So you got to get out there and agitate. Okay? Like I said, don't go out and ask for the right to vote. Go out and ask for more women's restrooms. You might get them.
I'll tell you what, we've got some agitators in this room. I'm waiting for history to be written.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. History will be written.
We know it's already being written at Hack. So let's hope you guys can extend that beyond Hack.
Yes.
And to Amanda, who had to leave us.
Oh,
So we aren't forgetting about
She
them.
texted
So
me.
a toast to them. Here.
Wait.
Here.
Yeah.
And Heather.
And to Heather tonight. I love that question.
Specifically.
My mother came home from a PTA meeting when I was in the 3rd grade. And she was very tickled and very proud of me, which she always was. And she said, you know what your teacher told me tonight? My 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Churchill. I said, what, Mommy? She told me you're going to be a history teacher someday. In the 3rd grade, my teachers knew I was going to be a history teacher. I remember in the 4th grade when I had a couple of teachers in my elementary school come to me to ask me questions about this certain thing about George Washington, about the battle at Fort Duquesne, and I was telling them all kinds of things. So I was kind of in history, kind of a prodigy, and I knew, it just clicked. It was in my blood. And when you have something like that, maybe with you with psychology, you with English literature, or some of you, when you know something, if you can turn that into a career, go for it. Because, man, it's like I've never worked in my life other than the odd jobs I had to get through school.
Well,
that was the
you can
hardest time of
tell.
my life, working those jobs.
When you say it's in your blood, you can tell because it blows my mind when you stand there and just say, well, in 1870 so-and-so, and you just rattle off names and dates, and it's like, how do you even know all that?
I make it up as I go along to impress women.
No, what got me when he came down and said that stuff in the room gave him goosebumps.
Yeah.
What's that now?
The Lincoln, all that stuff
Oh,
in
that's
that room.
incredible though.
The guy and
Especially
everything.
Mary
Mary
Lincoln's
Todd's cape.
cape. It just, I had goose. Well, in Michigan we call them goose pimples. You guys laugh when I say that, but
That's
because you say goosebumps here, but goose pimples.
At what point did you fall in love with Abraham Lincoln?
Oh, that's good. That was later. Probably after I graduated from graduate school and everything. I guess I got to really get into the Civil War and thus Abraham Lincoln probably in the 1980s, back when I was about 4.
Grad school.
And the more I read about Abraham Lincoln, the more I realized that this guy was, the model human being, if not the most brilliant man that ever lived. And I really feel that way still to this day. I could tell you stories about Lincoln. I could tell you, I wish I had the time. I could give you fascinating things about Lincoln you never knew. Easy.
He doesn't fly.
The students at Hack, basically, the students I've had, you make you want to do things for them. Because they're so polite and so nice. I could kick them in the butt to work harder and get better grades. But I've never had I shouldn't say I've never, but I can count on the fingers of one hand the students that have bothered me at Hack over the years. And it makes you want to be a teacher. It makes you feel like you're fulfilling your life. And then when you get a group like this, like I said, it's hard not to cry on an evening like this, isn't it, David?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Terry about doing history and psychology in Europe.
Like, why did you choose Havel and not Fennel or one of the other history professors?
Because I knew Terry, and I'd seen Terry in action, and he seemed to have a way with students that just seemed to me to be very similar to, I think, something that I liked. And Fennel, I just didn't know him as well, and I guess my assumption was that
He is the best history teacher.
that I thought Terry would be willing to do it. At the time, I was single, and I said, "Let's do Europe." And we had these plans, and then we realized neither one of us had been to Europe. And after we laid it all out, Terry gave me the realization that he doesn't fly. So that kind of makes a trip to Europe a little bit out. And then Terry said, "Well, isn't there anything here in the United States?" And I said, "Well, William James started in Boston. We could talk about Harvard." I said, "Well, why don't we do that?" I said, "Well, we could look at presidents and murderers." And he's like, well, let's do that. I said, "How about biographies?" And we just studied people, and then it just snowballed.
But for any instructor there that doesn't know what we know about taking students on trips,
They don't know
if
what
they
they're
knew
missing.
and they were dedicated instructors, they would jump at the chance
They
to
do this in a
something like
second. They do it in a second.
And actually, it's one of our goals is to try to get more professors to want to develop and offer trips.
Yep.
I forgot to bring my pop-up book.
My father was a high school teacher for 29 years. And so I remember, I can't tell you when, but I just remember growing up and saying, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a high school teacher. My father actually forbid it. He said, "I don't want you to be a teacher. Teaching's going downhill. The students are getting worse and worse. You don't want to do that. I want you to, go into something else." And my dad was he was a reading teacher, but he liked computers. So he taught a gifted program in computers. So I kind of said, well, so I kind of went into computers because my father was kind of into it. we had instead of a Commodore 64, we had a Radio Shack. I think it was called a TR-80 or something. I don't know. It was a pretty lame computer. And I wanted, all my friends had ColecoVision, and my father's like, nah, video games, they're out. They're not going to go anywhere. We get a computer.
Okay.
Well, I don't know about all that. But so then we grew up in this little town, and everyone knew my father, so everyone knew me. I was Mr. Bailey's kid. And in 10th grade, I got an opportunity to go to VOTEC
No, I don't.
for my junior and senior year, and the VOTEC had a computer class, data processing technology. So I went into that, programmed and wrote stuff in computer languages, and I was pretty good at that, but I always found myself.
Can I get some plates? Because we've got cheesecake coming out.
Yes. We can do forks for that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the VOTEC school was 20 miles away from my school. It was set up in a way that if you went to VOTEC school, you were there the whole time. It wasn't you went half a day and came back. Because it was so far away, it was such a broad out school district. We were at one end, so we were bussed in 20 miles. There were people being bussed in from 20 miles on the other side. So, it was a pretty wide range of area. So you just went there the whole time. Well, I got an opportunity to redefine myself. No one knew me.
Thank you.
My computer science class, there were 5 students from my home school and 25 students that didn't know me at all. So I got an opportunity to redefine who I was and be my own person. And I always found myself, I'd do my computer programs real quick, and then I'd run over and help everybody else, help them with theirs. Because I just seemed to have a knack for that. And it just kind of led from one thing into another. So I started at Penn State in computer science. And I struggled the first semester.
If we can get a box the rest up.
That's what I'm thinking, how many boxes I need.
It looks like one. I graduated from a class of 68 people. I was second. In the class of 68, my high school had 500 students, grades 7 through 12. The VOTEC school had 500 students, grades 11 and 12. And my first class at Penn State had 320 students in math and calculus. So, it was a little bit of shock. So I faltered. 1.73 was my GPA the first semester.
Whoa!
I had all B's and C's going into the finals, and I'd never taken a comprehensive final before in my life, and I bombed it. So my father, being the school teacher that he was very pissed. I retook, and I had bad advising. Terry, my advisor, I said, I love science, I love math, and they're like, oh, okay. So my first semester, these were the 4 classes I took. Computer programming, college calculus,
Big mistake.
physics, and chemistry.
Oh my God.
So all in one pretty simple schedule now, right?
The fact that I had C's and B's going into the final and still pulled out a 1.73, 2 D's, a C, and a B, was pretty much miraculous. So I retook calculus and I retook physics.
Looking at me.
And I took the next computer science class, and I took a psych class. And halfway through the second semester, I realized I didn't want to be a computer programmer. I finished my math class, I finished the chemistry class, passed both of them, withdrew from my computer class because I said I don't want to do this anymore.
When did you settle on psychology?
I got a C in Psych 101.
Well, yeah, go with your best.
Yeah. So what happened was,
Although if I had a brain surgeon who got a C, and that's why I became a brain surgeon, I don't know if I'd be real.
Well, what happened was, the way that I knew I didn't want to be a computer programmer, I had procrastinated. It was 6 a.m. I'm sitting in the computer lab. I have a project due at 10, and I hadn't quite finished it yet, and I was having bugs in it. And I remember looking around this computer lab at 6 a.m., and I looked and I said, all these people are geeks. I want to be a geek. I want to deal with computers for the rest of my life. This sucks. So I ran away. Like Mr. Robin. Right.
Plates for the cheese.
So, I don't know. I was undecided for about a year and a half, and then I had 2 years in at Penn State. I wanted to graduate in 4 years. I didn't want to be a student anymore. And I looked at my transcript and everything fit as psychology as a degree, and I liked psych, so I just kind of went into that. Got my degree in psychology, worked at a drug and alcohol dual diagnosis facility, then became a drug and alcohol counselor. Did that for 5.5 years. Decided I didn't want to do drug and alcohol counseling, but I wanted to continue along the same path, so I decided to go in for my master's in psych. I was going to go for my PhD. Got my master's done, did research, found it fascinating, and went into working at the prison. And every single time, like doing drug and alcohol work and working at the prison, I always felt like I was teaching people something. Like it wasn't therapy, it was teaching.
What was your master's thesis?
My master's thesis was on burnout for chemical addiction counselors, comparing recovering and non-recovering counselors to see which had higher rate of burnout.
You know what mine was for history?
What's that?
The history of hogs in Kansas from 1860 to 1880.
Watch Wizard of Oz.
I pigged out on that one. Yeah, as part of my research, I watched The Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Well, no one had ever looked at chemical addiction counselors, and they'd never broken the two groups apart before.
Well, nobody had ever looked at hogs in Kansas.
Well,
I'll tell you, you guys laugh. I am the expert on hogs in Kansas from 1860 to 1880. Let's say it's a Friday night. Saturday night, I'm at a party, right? I'm sitting in the corner, I've got a drink, one in each hand. Across the room, they start talking about hogs or pigs in Kansas. Who is the go-to guy at the party that night? I'll give you one hint. He's got 2 thumbs and he's been drinking wine all night.
Frank Elbaum.
I'm the go-to guy when it comes to
But I understand you're talking about the computer stuff, because when I was back in college the first time, computers weren't what they are now. It was just a big machine with paper, and you had to write them. And I had one that would not work, took it to the professor, he couldn't figure it out. I said, okay, that's it, I'm done. You can't help me? I'm done with this mess.
Well, I had a B in that course. I put it past it. I just didn't want to. I think I was so frustrated from the semester before. So I don't know. And then I have to confess, it was my first wife that told me to teach. She saw an ad at Hack, and they were looking for.
That's not all your first wife told you.
Yeah, they were looking for a psychology professor at Lebanon campus, and I was living in Harrisburg and working in Camp Hill. And I thought, well, they'll hire me. And she said, go try it. So I threw my hat in the ring. They hired me, and for the next 6 years, I taught 2 classes a semester, one at Lebanon, one at Harrisburg, worked at the prison, loving life, working my ass off, and then, during that time, got divorced. And then a job opened up full-time at Gettysburg, and I thought, what the hell, I'll just keep working at the prison and teaching part-time, or maybe I'll get lucky and somebody will hire me. And
wait a minute, you worked your ass off and got a divorce.
Yeah.
Because your wife didn't want to be married to a guy
No,
with an ass?
she wanted an ass, not me. Remember, I didn't have an ass anymore, so.
I get it.
Let's go around the table and ask people's why they want to go.
Because I think that he was the founder. He was the first. The other person that I like, and not for the same reasons that everybody else hates him, I like Sigmund Freud because I think that he's misunderstood. I think we try to look at Sigmund Freud through today's lenses, and I think if you look through Sigmund Freud through today's view, he doesn't fit. But I think if you went back to his time and you looked through, and that's where I fell in love with history, because I started to realize that you can't understand psychology or the great thinkers unless you understand the time periods they lived in. And when you understand the time periods they live in, their theories take on a way different view, and it fits for the time period. Maybe not now, but it did then. So history just fascinated me. I just couldn't get enough of it. Because to truly understand, you have to understand the history around the people that you're talking about.
Hannah, then who's your favorite psychologist?
I really do like Carl Jung, but there was a stood. I knew I should have done it, man. Now I really wish I did, but I really like Carl Jung.
I do like to talk about it in class. Anytime you would present a theory and be like, that's Freud, is it?
Yeah.
I bring him up with my.
The author that really got me into writing was Stephen King, because my parents were both really big fans of him. And I
He's from Maine, right?
Yes. He my mother, when I was in the 7th grade, and we had a project in our computer science class where we had to write a letter to a famous person or a company and ask them for something. And this was at the time where chat rooms were getting really popular, like it was like right after You've Got Mail, the movie You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. And one of the people my mom met in the chat room was this guy who went to high school with Stephen King. And he gave us his home address. And I wrote to him thinking nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, sure. 100%.
Yay, holy smoke.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's do that. The majors.
Why I chose history.
I don't really know.
I couldn't read until I was 10. Like, my parents really tried to teach me, and for some reason it didn't click. So I was read to a lot. Like, my sister would read to me all her books, and she's 5 years older than to me, so I grew up listening to, like, The Secret Garden and just, like, the classics, so she read them to me. And my mom would read to me history books, because I couldn't read my history books. So even when I learned to read, that's something we kept up, so she would always read to me my history books. And I loved it, and since I was homeschooled, we'd go through them, so I was, like, in the 5th grade, reading, like, 7th grade history books, and she would read them to me, and I would, like, read along next to her. And I don't know.
Thank you.
I just loved it. And then after she died, I got really bad social anxiety. And my first year of college was pretty crappy. But I loved my history class.
Thank you very much.
I just kept up with it.
Was your first year at HAC?
Yeah. I don't know. I just had really bad anxiety. But I loved all my professors and all my classes. It wasn't hack. It was me. But I don't know. Last year I just chose history. It's something I've always loved.
What's your favorite thing in
I
history?
never would have guessed all this.
I don't know. I love the dictators and the wars. I love Napoleon Bonaparte. He's one of my favorites.
Oh,
And
so
Stalin.
favorite person.
Yes.
I love World War I and the War of 1812.
I like that because I feel like
My father is a history major when he was in school, and he has bounced from job to job and has never made anything out of his college career. He just wasted it. I was thrilled that, I can take history and make something. Yeah,
And you can, you guys. You can make a great life. You'll never get rich. No, and monetarily you'll never get rich, but you will be enriched in your life because, again, it's a hobby, it's a pastime, it's a 24-hour thing, it's a travel thing, it's a watching TV thing, it's a discussion thing. It's just a great thing to have a lot of knowledge of.
It's in everything.
And if you can make a job out of it,
That I say sleep and dream sciences and research, but like who the hell knows where I'm gonna end up with that. But I just interested in everything, and I guess I was kind of half the thought like, well, if I'm gonna be, I don't want to go all through college for just an English major because people always like look down on that. So I was gonna get my MFA or something, so I was gonna get that. But I was like, no, I really want to go to college, and I was like, I don't know, I can't really pinpoint the time when I decided on psychology. Like I've always loved it. I've always been interested in people, and people are weird, and I absolutely love
it.
And I feel like I'm an intuitive person, and I feel like that comes into play with that as well. I like helping people. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I love it so much, and like it's just it's in me. I have to.
I love it. If you know it's in you, yeah.
So when I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. Of course, every little kid wanted to be an astronaut, right?
I still do.
They closed NASA, so I can't get in there and stuff. But so when I was growing up, I was like, you know what? I'm never gonna be an astronaut. So and then I always, for some reason, I was like, when people ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I was like, I just want to save the world. And I was like, from what? And I was like, from like horrible people, from like bad people, and that was just always on my mind. And then I went to college, and then on college I was going to do math major because like math, I love math and like all this stuff. And then I taught actually. I don't know if you professors know that. I don't know what that is. Don't break it. Professor Clokus, I taught him a new formula to solve something that he has never heard of.
A mathematical
a mathematical formula that I created. But
Einstein.
no.
Don't be modest.
But so I was always fascinated in that. But then for some reason I just wanted to help people and like save people. So I was like, you know what, like, I'm gonna be a doctor. But then I was like, 7 years and then 4 years, and then it was like by the time that I actually get to work with people, the doctors only spend 15 minutes in the room and they leave. So I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. So nursing. So I decided to go nursing, but I was like, yeah, nursing, then 4 years, and then what do I do? So, and then it sounds horrible, but it was like thanks to my dad's accident. My father almost lost his arm, he almost lost his hand. An accident.
I thought you said accents. So I was
Accident. I'm sorry.
Just for you. I wanted
But
to
that's
ask you a
accident.
specific one. I wanted to give her a specific one.
He almost lost his arm. He almost lost his hand. So I had to drop out of college to take care of him. So I was working 3 jobs, trying to keep up with it. Like the family left us. So it's just me and him, and it was a really hard moment for all of us at some point. But then, I will never forget. Whenever they took him, they flew him to Hershey, and they are wheeling him to the operating room. And as soon as they're wheeling him, they're running, and I'm running with them, and then they go in and then they take him out, and then the doctor is coming out right behind me, and he's talking to me. Then all of a sudden you see these people wearing the green robes or whatever they're called, with their hands like this, and they're ready to do surgery, and they're walking next to me and running around me, and I'm on the middle of this four-way in Hershey's hospital. So, and I'm just standing there, and the doctor's talking to me, and I'm just looking around, and I was like, this is where I belong. This is exactly where I belong.
Wow.
Saving people. That's what I want to do. Is just save lives.
Yeah, so down to that,
Surgery.
that's part of why I want to do. I mean, with literature and writing, you can make a difference too. But with psychology, I really want to make a difference in the world. And that might sound super cheesy, but I want to be part of that.
No, yeah.
Especially with the research of I want to be a part of something new and amazing. And,
way to throw me under the bus.
I'm not. You can, because I love it. What do you got?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
George, what about you?
I wanted to be Picasso when I grew up. I told myself I want to paint like Picasso. And that's what I wanted to do. Well, I didn't paint like Picasso, but I went to school first for interior design. That blew out because everyone in the groups had their little cliques, and y'all got their little cliques, and I fit nowhere. And then I got, digital design, graphic arts, sure, why not? It was the Art Institute of York, which is now closing, surprisingly. So I can't. So it's hard for people to look at my resume. When you graphic, it's closed. Sorry, but no. And then I went to Philadelphia. I had my running with drinking and all of that partying scene, which I didn't get at first college. I was for visual effects after I graduated, our first time around. And then someone said, mother told me, why not go to Hack? I have a teacher at Holly Gatesburg High School that teaches at Hack, and why not come out to Hack and try it out? So I did, and the first teacher I had was Fennel, believe it or not. And I was going to say this right now, I failed Fennel's class the first time around.
He makes a point to say in his classes that there was a kid that played World of Warcraft the whole time and still got a C.
Was that you?
No, that was not me. No, but after Fennel's class and going through a few semesters, I finally took a class in Cobble, and then I realized, I really like history. And I could do something with this. And I changed my major from fine arts to social science, and I became a history teacher. And I wanted to be a history teacher. And I've been stuck at Hobble a few times at Fennel. I think they're one of the two best professors on the campus. Not to say that Joyce and all those other teachers are not bad as well. I mean, they're all good teachers. But if I can leave one thing, it's more that you think outside the bus, and history is in the making. It's what you believe. I learned that from, of course, Hobble here. And with Fennel, I've always learned bad sarcastic jokes. And you can't take notes before class because you don't know what he's going to say, and he's all over the place. He bounces all the walls, but you learn more about the Civil War from him. But when you get to all of that, and then I decided to do World War II reenacting, which had me interest in World War II, and then I watched a PBS program about the War of 1812, and I said, I love history. I want to teach it to the kids. I want to teach it to high school students. I want them to get prepared for college because I don't want them thinking oh, what you learned in the past is all wrong. I want them to make a difference in life. I want them to grow up saying, I know history, I know what happened in the past, so when I go out there and do my field, I can use that with me now and not make the same mistakes that we did before.
That's awesome. Miss Stacy.
Thank you.
I'm
Stacy?
probably the boringest one here because I'm going into accounting.
No.
No, well,
My
here.
ex-wife,
But-
you know.
But to be honest, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my daughter who taught me in early school. I'm gonna say something I shouldn't say, but actually, I came from a battered past before I came here. I had an abusive husband, and I tell people to this day, if it weren't for my mother, I'd probably be dead right now. But anyway, neither here nor there. I'm here now, and when I told my mother what I was going to do, the first thing she said to me was, "I knew you would always go into accounting. That's what you should have done years ago." But I just love history, so that's kind of like a side one.
Yeah, and that's unusual. Usually people that go off into that kind of an area, they work a different part of their mind. So you must be able to balance things on both.
Well, I'd asked about math. I'd asked one of the math teachers what I could do. I'm basically teaching, and teaching's not my thing. I don't want to teach. So there's not a whole lot to do with math, so that's why I chose the accounting part of it, which my daughter's also doing. So I told her, I said, when we're done with this, maybe we can work together.
That's awesome.
Have your own firm.
Stace, I'll let you know. My first wife got a 2-year degree in accounting. She went to work for the Department of Revenue. She's now working for the federal government in Washington D.C. making 6 figures. So you can go anywhere.
Oh,
I
yeah.
told you what my
It's
brother
just-
does,
it's
right?
just- no.
Because he's a CPA. He also, obviously, accounting. He graduated from LSU.
My wife doesn't have a CPA though. She's got a 2-year accounting degree in state service.
But, I mean, if you want to take it further,
That's awesome.
Well, my dream is to get my CPA, but I don't, it's, you know.
what he did before and what he's doing now is he's actually for corporate for Chili's, the restaurant, for the entire Dallas and Houston area. So he just has to flash his little card when he goes into any Chili's and he gets free food. And then after that, he wanted to try something a little bit different, which he left and went back to Chili's. But he was the CPA firm on like a small marina corporation.
I was just told
Which-
by another professor that
so
I was
he-
getting into
yeah.
a boring profession because it was numbers. But like you said, somebody's got to like to do it, or
You can find
Yeah.
perks because with the marina, he had to physically go to each dock, which means he went to Bermuda to do numbers. He went to the Virgin Islands to do numbers. You know, so there's benefits to be found, even if it's a job that's
Oh,
not.
So if you went to more than one dock, that was a paradox?
Yeah.
That was good. I'm liking that one.
no, I just like the numbers.
Well, I'm just saying you can go far. And don't be afraid of numbers. I think it's awesome. Their research shows that when given the same amount of instruction, women are just as good in math, if not better, than males in math when given the same instruction.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just could have done that for being the idiot
terrible.
in
No.
my
All right. Who else has to go?
Ashley.
Ashley and Sam.
So I love to write.
Yay.
But
Yeah.
I'm not foolish enough to think that I will be the next great American writer. So that's not what I'm going into. So I took a bunch of humanities courses and I fell in love with art and history, and so that is what I'm majoring in. Is humanities, and when I leave HAC, it's going to be art history.
What do you want to do with that?
I want to work in a museum.
Museum
curator.
Yay.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yay. Sam, now you're nursing just as me. What?
Alright, mine's kind of a long story actually. Because if you take me like back to high school, I didn't play school sports or anything like that. My entire life was go to school and afterwards go to dance. So I honestly thought that I was gonna grow up and own a dance studio or like be on Broadway or tour with Dance Olympus or something huge, you know. And I mean that was my entire passion. And then, like, you kind of quickly figure out when you graduate high school, like, yeah, I'm not going to really pay my bills dancing. So, I mean, unless you do it, like,
I mean, that kind of dancing.
The not respectable way.
Clear heels.
So I just was working, and you know, most young people, they just go right into the restaurant industry. So as most of you know, I ended up at Hooters, and I was kind of like, wow, like where do I go from here? And I learned a lot when I started managing the restaurant. Like, I really learned a lot from my staff. And one of the girls came to me and was telling me that she was doing these classes to become a CNA. And like, this is something I didn't know anything about, because I didn't look into anything college related, because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do computers or nursing or any of that. I wasn't interested. I wanted to dance. But, you know, I had to figure something out, and being in the restaurant industry, I loved people. So this girl was telling me about CNA classes, and that she found like a $15 to $16 an hour job. And I was like, which, let me tell you, CNAs do not make that much money. But I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I could try that out. So I up and left Hooters because it was like a horrible, horrible situation. And if you were in the pool the other night, you heard the whole story.
Yeah.
So I just started applying to places. I signed up through Hack for the CNA course, and I had my background check and my TB tests and all that stuff done. So I put together this little binder, and I went around to like all these nursing homes. And I was like, you know, I just want to get my foot in the door. If I can work in your kitchen, fine, until I get certified. Well, I ended up at Hanover Hall, and they do CNA classes where they pay you to be in class and pay for your certification, and then you have a job when you're done. So that's what I ended up doing, and I'm still there. And I just knew, like, I didn't even know if I could be a CNA when I signed up for this class. Because I'm the kind of person that, like, I'll change a garbage can bag and be like, bleh, like, it stinks, you know? So, like, how am I going to take care of little people, right? But I did it, and you learn real quick when you're in that situation, when you're caring for a person that, like, they need you, and they rely on you, and you have to do it for them. Yeah. And it makes you feel really, really good. And I just knew, like, I just got such like a rewarding feeling from it that I just knew it was my calling in life. And I real quick forgot about dance. Like, I just forgot about it, because I mean, I never imagined my life without dancing. And all of a sudden, like, my whole life, anything I do at Hack, it doesn't matter what class it's for. If I have to do a paper or report, I always relate it back to nursing somehow, especially geriatrics. I love the old folks.
Oh.
So.
You're an amazing person.
Thank you.
I could picture you with a dance studio though.
Yeah.
Like Miss Patty and Gilmore Girls.
But I
sexier.
I have to say that I have gotten an opportunity, because, you know, we've talked both on the bus, outside the bus, over dinner. Each one of you have a unique and wonderful story. I think it's awesome. I'm glad you're all here, and this moment gets to be shared. Now, Terry and I have something for you.
Not much, but some memento.
Here's what I would like to do, because there's a variety. Don't let them look.
No.
Let them reach in and grab one.
Right.
There are different designs.
Mementos of the trip.
And what we'll do is, if you don't like the one you pick out, you can, of course, trade it with someone else if they don't like theirs, but we think they're pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
it's just
we're
a paperweight.
We're going to start from this way, so I'm going to reach all the way over. You first reach in, grab one. Oh, I guess, yeah, here, go ahead. We'll
This
just
is
pass it
Jordan's
around.
third one. I hope he still has the other two.
Pass that way. And then whatever's left over, we'll give to Heather. Sound good? Because there's 5 in each bag.
I got the wet halves. What did you guys got?
I think it's appropriate you got the White
The
House.
White
You guys
House. You get the Capitol.
Oh, did you get
That's
the White
awesome.
House too? Oh, you got that.
What'd you
The
get?
Capitol?
Washington D.C.
Oh, you got
Oh, you got it all.
you got it all.
Oh, no, you got the Capitol.
You got the White House?
Secretly, I when I end up working here one day, so.
At the White House as president?
No, I can't be president. I
No,
want
you're
to
not
work.
natural born citizen.
Yeah.
No.
Secretary.
For you as
Well, I'd like some of you to handcuff me tonight.
Here you go.
Oh, well, thank you, you guys.
And they're
I was looking at
They
these
match.
too.
Guys,
I was looking at these.
What's
They
that?
match.
Same color.
Terry, we match.
Yes.
That's the best part of it.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Papa Bailey,
Thank you.
Love it.
See, and you say you can never find your name.
And no, and I couldn't. And
There
I
it
happened to
is.
see these, and I almost bought one of these. I'm glad I didn't. Thank you very much,
And
everybody.
if you know anything about me, I put all of my keys on long keychains so I don't lose them because I've locked my keys in the car before. I
This
did
is
it
going
within
on
2
my
weeks of
briefcase
one
I carry
another
every day
once.
to have.
For thanks for Triple A.
So now you remember this group.
That's right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're going to school in the short bus.
I think about it every day.
Cooler, so that's cool. I'll put them in first. You guys can stack stuff in